For what purpose does the gentleman from Colorado seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 2389.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar Number 244, H.R. 2389, bill to take certain land in the state of Washington into trust for the benefit of the Quinault Indian Tribe, Indian Nation, and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Crank, and the gentlewoman from Washington, Ms. Randall, will each control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Colorado.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and to include extraneous material on H.R. 2389, the bill now under consideration.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of H.R. 2389, the Quinault Indian Nation Land Transfer Act, sponsored by Congresswoman Randall. H.R. 2389 would place approximately 72 acres of U.S. Forest Service land, known as Allotment 1157, into trust for the Quinault Indian Nation. The Quinault Nation is located on the western coast of Washington State in the southwestern corner of the Olympic Peninsula. In the Treaty of Olympia, or the Quinault Treaty, the Quinault Indian tribe ceded their lands and, in return, received tracts that became the Quinault Indian Reservation. The treaty was dismissed after the passage of the General Allotment Act, and the tribe's lands were separated into 2,340 80-acre allotments to individual tribe members. One of these individual tribal members' allotments was Allotment 1157, which was sold by the Indian allottee to a logging company for $60,000 in the 1960s. The logging company faced legal challenges by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in the early 1990s. And in 1996, the Trust for Public Lands purchased Allotment 1157 and sold it to the U.S. Forest Service for $3 million. The Forest Service currently manages the land. The Quinault Indian Nation has attempted to reacquire ownership of the land, which sits on their reservation, for the benefit of their tribe. The tribe has the support of local stakeholders and the federal government and plans to use the land for heritage and cultural purposes. Gaming on these lands, pursuant to the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, would be prohibited. I support this bill, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Colorado reserves. The gentlewoman from Washington is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in strong support of this bill, the Quinault Indian Nation Land Transfer Act. And I want to thank Chairman Westerman and Indian and Insular Affairs Subcommittee Chairman Hurd for the opportunity to speak about another bill before us today, and for their thoughtful engagement with tribal council members and tribal president Guy Capoman when he came before committee, and Quinault Business Committee member Tyson Johnson, who testified to the importance of this legislation earlier in this year. This bill, for me, represents the kind of tangible bipartisan work I believe that Congress should be doing every day, delivering real solutions, repairing historic injustices, and strengthening our relationships with sovereign tribal nations. Earlier this year, I reintroduced the Quinault Indian Nation Land Transfer Act in partnership with Senators Cantwell and Murray. And I want to recognize the leadership of my predecessor, Representative Derek Kilmer, who worked diligently on this legislation in past Congresses. This bill would return approximately 72 acres of land, as you heard, known as Allotment 1157, to the Quinault Indian Nation by placing it into trust for the Department of Interior. To understand why this matters, we have to understand the history. Allotment 1157 was once part of the original Quinault Reservation, land guaranteed to the nation under the Treaty of Olympia. But in 1928, during the era of forced allotment and fractioning, where ownership of tribal land was divided, the land was taken out of trust and ultimately lost to the tribe. It passed through private ownership to a timber company and decades later was acquired by the U.S. Forest Service. Through all those years, the Quinault people were cut off from land that held deep cultural and ecological value. Allotment 1157 includes some of the last remaining old-growth forest in the region, and it is a place where Quinault carvers once slid canoe holes into the Salmon River, a place tied to traditional lifeways, to craft, to history. It is sacred land. Returning Allotment 1157 is not only historically justified, it is morally necessary. It restores the Quinault Nation land that was never meant to be taken. It reaffirms the United States' trust responsibility and treaty obligations, and it allows the tribe to continue stewarding an ecosystem that they have cared for since time immemorial. The Quinault Nation plans to use this land as a place of education, a living museum where future generations can learn about their heritage, their connection to the Salmon River watershed, their responsibility to protect the land. This is self-determination in action. This is environmental stewardship in partnership with tribal leadership. And this is Congress fulfilling its promise. I'm proud to champion this bill, and I urge my colleagues to support its passage. Restoring Allotment 1157 is long overdue, and moving this legislation forward is a meaningful step towards justice. To my partners in this work, thank you. Your voices, your stories, they're essential as we work to uphold our commitments to tribal nations. And to the Natural Resources Committees, to committee members, thank you for giving this legislation the thoughtful attention that it deserves. I respectfully ask for your support, and thank you. I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman reserves. The gentleman from Colorado is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I have no further requests for time and am prepared to close. I continue to reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlewoman from Washington is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I urge my colleagues to support this legislation and yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman yields. The gentleman from Colorado is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, H.R. 2389 takes approximately 72 acres of U.S. Forest Service land into trust for the Quinault Indian Nation and adds the 72 acres to the contiguous land of the Quinault Indian Nation. This legislation supports tribal sovereignty, and it has the support of the tribe leaders and local stakeholders. I urge passage of this bill and yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 2389? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative. The rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.